Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of At Home, the show where I get a chance to talk to everybody else about how the last year or so this pandemic has affected them. As I've said on other shows, it's so interesting to me that the people I get to talk to, whether they're small business owners, working for a company, doing whatever position they do, either in their job and their personal lives, how uniquely this last year, last 9 months, feels like 2 years sometimes, has affected their lives. And then kind of more importantly, what everyone has been able to accomplish in that time period. Because as easy as it is to sit back and tell ourselves this, oh God, this last year is terrible, it's been so hard, blah blah blah. Yes, there have been a lot of things that have not been amazing about the last year, for sure. I would say though, and my wife and I went through this process here recently where we actually talked about kind of the negative versus the positive. And what we actually found is that for us at least, the amount of positive things when we really looked hard at it actually ended up outweighing the crappy things. There was a handful of crappy things and they were really, really crappy. But all of the other things like building new friendships and meeting our neighbors more than we had before, not eating out as much, eating more healthy. I mean, that was all the stuff that was important to us. It increased dramatically. And I realized how important that is. So one of my favorite parts about doing this show is being able to bring other people on who have different perspectives than all of us and than myself, and really understand how has this affected them, and then more importantly, what have they been able to do that is positive, that has really come out of this. So I'm really excited for my guest today. His name is Robert Ostrow. Robert, how are you doing?
Oh man. Hey Jeff, thank you so much for having me on. Truly has been a up and down year. Um, I have everything to be thankful for because through it all, I have an amazing wife and amazing friends. And I really have nothing to complain about because part of it is I have just a great support system of people around me.
That's
Truly.
awesome. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I think that is definitely everyone that I have talked to who has been able to sit back and look at sort of the positive side, or at least the benefits that have come out of this last year, have echoed what you just said, which is you start when you let yourself, you realize there is actually a really good support system around you. You just have to almost take a breath and let yourself see it, because it's really easy to focus on, do the doom scrolling thing and look at Twitter or look at Facebook or any news site and be just realizing how far in that rabbit hole you can go, and like you never walk out of it, and then you feel like that is everything, and it's clearly
Yeah.
not.
Let's be honest, no one's ever simulated this kind of situation that we're in, like in my lifetime, in your lifetime. So here you're physically forced to either adapt to it or completely be immersed and kind of lose yourself. And yeah, I've been through a year. I live in downtown Durham, North Carolina. I've watched a city basically go vacant. Instead of activity, instead of excitement, it just went to silence, and every noise is amplified, echoing off buildings, and can hear people talk and laugh, and you almost feel like, why are they laughing? Why am I inside? So it really kind of messes with you. But at the end of the day, realize that we have a choice: either accept it or do something about it. And this year has turned into me losing my job, me trying to find a job, me interviewing for a job, and buying a home and moving into a new house tomorrow. It's
Oh
complete
wow.
chaos. But in the center of that storm, there's just some comfort knowing that it's all going to be okay. I just have to be patient and really work with my friends and my family to work through it.
That's a
Great.
really good. It's a really good perspective. So before we dive into some of those topics, because you brought up some things I really would love to ask you about, why don't you give everybody, a little bit of additional background than what you just said, who, what your title is, what you do, for a living, whatever you want to talk about, just to give them a sense of who you are.
Sure. It's funny. I really appreciate the way I was brought up because I'm always about reacting and relating with people. So every industry I've been in, I've been a retail manager in music. I've been a district manager for Starbucks. I've been a salesperson for Gillette. I've been a financial center manager for Wells Fargo. I've been a conference and event manager for higher ed. And now I've landed in probably one of the best companies I've ever even dreamed about. And I found it during this whole pandemic, is a financial tech company called Sezzle based out of Minneapolis. And at the end of the day, it's all about connecting with people. And as this company is growing, I feel really excited to be part of the energy of a 300 people who are just excited to be locked in and having one focus and one goal, which is financially empower the next generation. Really exciting stuff. But the fact I had to go through phone interviews and Skype interviews and Zoom interviews and Google meetings, it really showed that A, you need to be prepared, but B, it's all about relationships. And the only way I had this opportunity is because of a friend in high school from 36 years ago. It just came back to me, and I'm so thankful I cherish those friends, and cherish just, in some cases, you never know when they're going to come back into your life. And even if you haven't seen each other in 30 years, and Jeff, let's be honest, how many times have you actually hung out together? We can count maybe on my two or three times, but we can pick up and have a conversation because it's all about connecting. It's all about, just being present in the moment. So it's been a crazy year, and it's only going to get crazier tomorrow. If you want to come over and help, you're more than welcome to lift some boxes with me.
Absolutely, dude. I love moving. It's my favorite thing in the world to do, or not at all. The last two times my wife and I have moved, the last two times we moved, 2 times ago, like, maybe we should hire somebody. We had a lot of stuff. We hired a moving company just to pick the stuff up and take it to the new house. And as soon as we did that once, we're like, oh my God, I am never not doing this again. Like, I hate moving. This is not fun at all.
I always say to my friends, there's a reason why we're friends. It's because I'm not asking you to help me move. That's it. We pay for it. We're done with it. And hopefully tomorrow it'll be over. Saturday is a big move-in day. Sunday morning, wake up and sit out on the back porch in North Carolina, 30-degree weather with a cup of coffee with my wife, and hopefully catch some deer running across our yard.
Dude, it doesn't get much better than that. So no, you brought a number of things up that I want to kind of expand on, but one of them that you just mentioned, when you went through this, like work transition in the last year, you brought something up that a lot of people, of course, are dealing with now, which is remote work. But I think the perspective that many people, or I know the perspective that many people I talk to, either in my current job or working at other companies, is the perspective of remote work or remote engagements, remote relationship building from the perspective of somebody that I am working with, somebody that I am doing a project with at work, or a partner that I engage with at a third party, or what have you. But I don't know that a lot of people have been actively talking about how do you go get a job when you can't physically be around those people, the body language you pick up on, the interactions you have, the fact that you have to deal with the delay when you, in a lot of cases, when you do, some sort of web conferencing, Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting, whatever it happens to be. So I'm really curious from your perspective, how did that process of trying to reconnect with a relationship that could help you find a role that fits you, and then having to go through all these things in such a virtual way to actually be successful in getting the job? Like, how was that experience different than what you've experienced in the past?
Wow. Great question. First and foremost, I have to just full disclosure, I'm an extrovert. So the fact is,
really? I had not guessed that at all.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was on my shirt. I get energy for being around people who are excited and who trade different ideas, who are also genuine and present and have their own opinions and bounce things off and don't necessarily take things so seriously. So here I was got laid off in June, and if you've ever been laid off, it's hard not to take it personally. So you have to work through those emotions, and then you start saying, I need a job, and you start going through sending out resumes. And then I realized every resume I'm sending out, there's somebody else out there doing the same thing. I have to figure out how to differentiate myself from the rest of the pack. And in some cases, I've had a pocket of friends who also have been laid off, specifically in the conference and events industry, and trying to work with each other to look for ideas and how to curate and sift through the massive, job listings or not, and also cheerleaders for each other, just to try to pick each other up, have an ear, to rely on. But at the end of the day, we're in this together. And the last thing that really kind of set things forward for me is to be humble. The fact is I didn't do anything wrong. It was a combination of pandemic and the state that we're in, and to just sit there and say, listen, asking for help is a strength. A lot of people feel like it's a weakness. And I've always felt like, yeah, I can be stubborn in my lifetime, but there are times when you let your guard down. And I reached out. I did posts on LinkedIn and Facebook saying, hey, listen, I'm looking for a job. Here's what I got. Here's what I can do for you. And I had somebody that I reached out previously who work for another company, and they switched companies, and they reached out to me saying, are you interested in an opportunity to interview? And that's all I want, is to get my foot in the door. But at that moment, I realized that, I'm thankful to have those resources. And if you don't have them today, then it's okay to ask friends to make referrals. LinkedIn says, hey, talk to this person to be the second referral or the third referral of so-and-so. It starts with your local friends. Maybe it's somebody locally that you can speak with. And yeah, I live in downtown Durham, so I've got RTP around here. So it was a lot of tech companies. So I knew I needed to focus on tech. Even though the company I work for, Sezzle, is based in Minnesota, I almost continued on with a position or an opportunity for another company locally. But part of it is I have to keep my options open. And the next job I take, the next job I do, didn't have to be my final job of my career. It was just to get the momentum going, just to feel good about yourself. But in this case, I love my job. I love what I do. And I would love to be with them until I retire, if they let me.
I love that you bring that up. That last piece you just brought up about that you don't have to be with a company till you retire. I mean, you might want to, or maybe that opinion will change in 2 years. It doesn't matter. I think there's almost an overfocus pre-pandemic and even now on, like, well, am I going to land that perfect job? That whatever that unicorn of a perfect job happens to be. And something I've been thinking a lot about, and I'd love to talk with you more, is
Sure.
this idea that there is no perfect job. I personally don't believe there is no perfect job. Will always, a joke that I used to have, a funny conversation I would have with somebody I used to work with, he was in a different part of my organization. Whenever we would talk, it was never like, it was always like, hey, let's see whose grass is greener today. And we laughed about that because it was never whose grass is greener. It's just the different shade of green that our grass was. Like, the things that
Sure.
frustrated me about my job looked really appealing on his side, but then you tell me things are frustrating for him. And it was like, yeah, it's just different. And I find that more often than not, and I think you really touched on it, is more often than not, if you can find a way to bring those things you're passionate about, the things you love doing, with you into whatever job you do. I'm not saying you have to love your job, because you're not always going to love it. But if you can bring those things that you're actually passionate about doing, like you said, working with people, being an extrovert, getting excited with somebody else, seeing the smile on their face, how can you help them do that more? Whatever those things are that get you to wake up every single day, that make you happy, if you can bring that
Right.
with you into the job that you do, the job doesn't have to be one that you love. You're going to love
Right.
how you do it every day. And that makes, I think, almost all the difference in the world. And I'm really curious from your perspective, especially having made this transition to something that really is like, wow, this worked out. Do you think that this new role for you, not to put you too much on the spot,
Sure.
has like made you feel so good or work out so well in large part because of the company and the work that you do, but maybe also because you feel the freedom and you came into it with the idea that, like, I'm taking something because I need something, but I also can bring myself when I'm in the role. Do you think it's some sort of like mix of those?
Well, you mentioned in a recent one of these chats with somebody about work-life balance, and you don't necessarily believe in work-life balance. I agree with that. It's more of a blend. So every day doesn't necessarily mean you're working harder and you're living harder, and it goes up and down. I wanted the job that was an extension of who I am. If I have to change the way I speak or what I wear, then again, I'm wearing something very different than I wouldn't be, wearing a tie or a suit. But if I have to do things so different, I don't get to be myself. So that was the most important thing for me, is finding a company that had values that were similar to what I was doing. If a company was doing it the right way, was socially conscious, I knew it was going to be very easy for me to have believability, because as a salesperson, I have to believe in the company and I have to believe in the product. So I have a transfer of believability when I'm speaking to a client. But when I walked into this company, what I didn't realize is it's refreshing to have people who don't get caught up in the noise in the system. And noise in the system can really take companies out by the knees, because you're too focused on what other people are saying instead of having direct conversations. I think that's what's happening here. We use Slack as our backbone of our system, and there's always, everything's out in the open for everybody to see. If there's a customer complaint, the CEO can see it too. There is nothing hidden. And then basically pride is left out the front door, because we're all in this together. So at one point, we can have conversations that are open and honest and upfront, and be able to get things completed and more, um, concluded, or what's the word I'm looking for? You can actually get the energy to make a goal and accomplish that goal, because the whole industry is moving so fast. You don't have time to do all the research and then wait 3 minutes to react. And I love it. I love the fact that I can see things changing every day. And in 2 months I'm at this company, I feel like I'm leaps and bounds where I was. Because in the beginning, it's learning a new industry,
Mm-hmm.
learning how to deliver the product. But at the end of the day, the people are the most important thing for me in a company. I don't care what the company is. If I don't like the people around me, it'd be really difficult for me to stay for a long time. And these people are outstanding.
I really love that you say that, because I think what the word I was thinking of, I just didn't want to interrupt your stream of consciousness there, is the word
Please.
empower. Like
Yeah.
it's empowering. It makes you feel like when you have that environment, not just, you combine people that you like working with, or more importantly, people that you share similar values with. You don't always have to like them, because you're going to
Sure.
like them sometimes, not like them other times. That's how relationships work. But
Right.
you share the same type of values with each other. You can stay
Mhm.
around them longer, even through those times where you don't like somebody for something that happened, and that's normal. But it
Right.
feels empowering, because it makes you, that kind of keeps that motivation and that momentum going to, like, yeah, but I'm going to keep doing this because I love what I do. I know these people are still going to have my back, even if we disagreed on something. It all kind of comes together for this one culture. And it's what you said is actually something that's been shaping in me, but I didn't think about it till just now, which is I made a transition or a pivot in my company to, I'm still in people leadership, I'm still in technology, but I moved into a very different part of technology that I've never done before in software development,
Mhm.
software engineering,
Sure.
as from an advocacy perspective. But in doing so, I part of the company that I moved into is still behaves very much like a startup, because it's not been around that long relative to the larger company as a whole. And
Mhm.
you just brought something up which strikes me, that when you have that sense of everybody is accountable to almost to each other, even though you have
Mhm.
senior leaders like a CEO or whoever, down to the individual contributors who do the day-to-day work. But when everyone's working together in Slack or what have you, you're all exposed to most everything that's happening. We can all see what's going on.
Right.
There's a level of accountability, not from a negative perspective, but almost we're all keeping ourselves accountable to making this business or this thing that we do every day better, which is
Yep.
really empowering. It's
Yep.
a very positive feeling, whether we actively think about it or not. It makes you want to do more inherently,
Yeah.
because everyone does have your back. It is not their snooping. They're all trying to do the same thing and have the same
Right.
positive outcome.
Yep. One goal, one focus. I always find it weird, and this is my opinion. There are companies out there that go through the process of recruiting and then interviewing and then hiring and then onboarding, but they do this thing 90-day, 60-day, 6-month probation, almost like you have to prove yourself that you truly are going to be part of the organization. And I think that's a bunch of bull. I think you grant them trust and respect up front. If you went through the process in the first place to hire them, why wouldn't you give them that in the beginning? And from day one, the expectation has been set that I contribute, that my opinion matters, and I'm going to give that. And I feel like anytime I do speak, I get respect back because I have a voice. And I find those things, critical right now for holding on to people in companies, retaining them and developing them. And I just feel there are companies out there who are just solid as a rock. They get it. There are people companies that do X. That's what Starbucks was about. I will always say that. I love the fact they said they are a people company that serves coffee. Love them or not, they were a people company serving coffee. And if you can't add that to your company, you're a people company that does computing or a people company that does automotive, then there's something wrong, because your people impact your customer impacts your business. That's the model. That's what I've learned.
I love that you bring up. First off, I completely agree with you. If
Right.
the output of your business, the product, whatever that happens to be for your customer or the clients that you work with, only happen because you have people that are invested and feel passionate and are willing and want to step up and do that. I
Yep.
mean, having come out of tech sales, I mean, I was in IT operations up until I joined Cisco. And then the first
Mhm.
X number of years at this company was all in technology sales. And so having done that for, a short period of time in my overall career, I'm with you that every single time I watched an account manager or another SE like I was be successful, it was because they actually cared. They spent time with it,
Yeah.
they were vested. And success didn't necessarily mean just a purchase order and we want a deal. It meant a lot of other things. But every time there was success, it was because the people
Yeah.
felt like they wanted to be invested in this with other people at the customer side, and there was a connection being made. The ones who
Yeah.
acted in a transactional nature to get their payday, which is not everybody, but there are people who are definitely like that, and that's fine. But you never saw consistent success in any real scale, and there
Mhm.
was no loyalty to the job or the company. They were absolutely the type of personality that would jump to the next company that's going to give them a bit more commission, or some other sort
Sure.
of carrot they would dangle. And hey, if that's you and that's what incentivizes you, that's your jam. You go do that. I'm not judging that
Absolutely.
at all. But I will say that the businesses overall that are the most successful as a business are the
Mhm.
ones that more incentivize or motivate people through building the human connections with each other and investing their
Mhm.
time in that side of things, rather than how can we dangle a carrot to get them a little bit more money so we get that other piece of talent in here that will
Yeah.
drive a little bit of additional bottom line. The former is, I think, far more beneficial to a company overall than the latter is. um,
Sure. I think that in the systems of training and development and onboarding is critical for a company to really explain to the newcomer how important it is to live and breathe and embrace the company culture. Because when you speak on behalf of the company, in some cases, you're the only person they're ever going to see. And if you act with grace, they're going to say your company acts with
mhm,
grace. People forget that sometimes. So
they do.
um,
And I think
you
that's
wear your logo on your shirt. You're wearing your Adidas logo. So you're embracing Adidas, and I'm embracing my company. But at the end of the day, people would rather hear talking. If they're talking about you, it's one thing. But if they love you and they show you how much they love you, it makes you stop and go, "What company is this? Who do you work for? That's pretty cool."
yeah, it's that culture thing. I think it's probably the biggest failing point of most companies or most leaders in companies is the ask of an employee. You just said it, whether it's a verbal ask or an unspoken ask of, you need to be successful here, you need to vest yourself in the company culture and behave that way. But they don't live it too. And they don't
Right.
lead the way into that culture and drive it. Because I think when you have somebody, and I don't mean like, I hate that term, oh, the company man, you're just towing the company line. It's like, no,
Sure.
that's a very 19, in my opinion, very 1950s, 1960s like Mad Men type mentality. You toe the company line because you're just going to do this and you're going to be here forever, and like that's what you need to do. It's like, no,
Sure.
it's never that black and white. It's never ever that
Right.
black and white. If your
Right.
leaders show those values too, like I'm very lucky, like you, to work for a company that our leadership is out there very often putting lines in the sand. And I don't mean this in a
Mhm.
negative way. Like they're the
Mhm.
first people to set out there on social media or publicly anywhere that what our values are as a company that we say internally, we behave that way externally. We say them, whether it's
Absolutely.
political, geo, interbusiness, whatever happens, they're the first ones to say something, and it makes you feel good. Like I was going to tweet something the other day about the political stuff that happened in the Capitol here recently,
Right.
but I
Sure.
hesitated because I'm a senior manager in this organization.
Right.
I run an advocacy team that's supposed to advocate to people to engage with our things. Like, do I really want to say this? Is that a smart thing for me to do? Like, I'm
Right.
representing the company here in a real way. Do I want to do this? And then right after I thought that, up on Twitter, my CEO and our chief people officer both posted something. They were very respectful, but they were also very telling and representing
Right.
our company culture. And I'm like, oh, well, thank you. Now I feel okay to go ahead and say what I was going to say, which was not
Yep.
disrespectful, but you see those little things when your leader actually goes and does it and lives that too. It
Yep.
makes you want to embrace yourself in the culture, and that's when a company and that's when the people who work there, I think, are the most successful, because you feel good about what you do or how you get to do it, even if the job
Right.
itself isn't always the most fun. No job is ever
Yep.
always the most fun, but if you could feel
Nope.
great about it, I mean,
If you can go to sleep at night and you go to sleep well and you're not stressed out or you're not wrapped up into it, then you feel like you're doing the right job or you're in the right career. But I'll tell you what, even at today, I got an email saying that our company we now have MLK off Monday. That wasn't on, part of our holiday schedule. And because they felt like it's now more than ever needs to be part of the culture of our company. And they made that decision today, actually yesterday. So the fact is that we're still ever evolving, and they're okay with making decisions and making them quick, but things change, and companies who can react like that, and that just tightens our culture and makes it like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. I feel part of a great team. I had a great team some years ago, and at the head of that team was a gentleman. It was in higher ed, and that person got it because they knew that if you treat your people with that respect and dignity, you have fun with them, you create big rocks, you accomplish great things, you celebrate, you make mistakes, but it's all in a team effort. The conversations I used to have with this team, they were my friends. They're still my friends, but it came to the point where we were all on the same page, locked in with one goal in mind. And those teams you need to cherish. Those teams never last forever because everyone's destined for something else. When you find teams like that, live in the moment because you never know how long those last.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that kind of to take that to the next step, I've I have talked to people, I've heard from people that like, oh man, I don't want to lose this team, and a natural response to somebody wanting to move on from the team in some cases is, oh man, we are losing this person. How are we going to keep the team together? It's like, well, first off, if you're just now thinking about this, that's a problem. We should have thought about that a while ago. But I don't mean the person leaving. Everybody is going to move on from a team. What you just described, in my opinion, or the way I think about it, is you're describing a culture. The culture that you build is the foundation that makes the team you currently have work so well, so that when a person decides to leave and seek their next opportunity, you can feel good that you can celebrate that. You can say,
Right.
of course we're bummed to see you go as a teammate, but we're all much happier for you than we are sad that you're getting to pursue the next thing, because we know that the next person who comes on the team, we have a defined way to bring the culture to that person and bring them on board so that the
Right.
team evolves. It changes, of course. It's not
Right.
going to be the same as it was before. It never would be, but it gets to evolve, and that new person gets to add into the culture what they have themselves, their own experiences, and the culture gets to evolve as a result of that, which I think that's the most exciting thing to look forward to. And it's missed in a lot of cases, I think.
Yeah, I feel managers tend to, here's my team, don't go anywhere. I'm going to love you, but don't leave me. But leaders train people to take over their own jobs. Like my job as a manager was to make sure my team was so well developed that one day they can take my position. That's the ultimate sacrifice. That's the ultimate goal, because I can, like you say, move to another section of the company and 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 influence it in some certain way. And Sezzle doesn't know this yet, but I know there's opportunity for me down the road. But today, I need to focus on my job and my role and understand the culture, understand my product, because it's important for me to build a foundation before I lead others doing other things. So the fact to give me an environment to learn something new is wonderful. But it's funny. Years ago, I was a wine salesman for 1 month. The company went out of business right in the middle of it. Never got paid, and I had to learn wine. And the fact is, to understand the backbone of the industry and understanding the process and what they go through to deliver wine to market. By the time it hits the salesperson's so far removed from the product, but they still have to read up about it and understand the terroir and the winemaker and what grapes are giving what characteristics. And now you're sitting in front of someone having a conversation, you're sharing a glass of wine, you're going through your experiences, and ultimately you become the winemaker, you become the person out in the field. And the fact is, that's what this company is about that I'm in. Is I'm not the one who's building the software, I'm not the one who's doing the coding, I'm not the one who's building the policies, but I'm the one who actually is understanding this industry and transferring that information. I'm putting the entire company on my back and sitting in front of somebody and having that story and having that conversation. Not the hard sell, just the conversation, the story, so they are educated to understand, so they can make an educated decision. So winemaking was really cool. I want to go back to that, but not anytime soon.
I totally understand that. Well, listen, man, as we're kind of winding down the episode, I guess the one last question I really want to ask you is, since we've talked a lot about, what the year has done, the transformations and the pivots you've gone through, and how that's affected you. One thing I am really curious about, because we have tried to talk a lot about the positive side of these things and how we can get there. If you were to pinpoint or to pick one thing that you would say is like a really positive thing that happened this last year for you, that came out of all the other things that were negative, what would that be?
Wow. Um, you know, we're so used to texting and saying hello to people, um, greeting somebody in a restaurant, a server or whatever. I think what I learned down is to slow down and try to connect with even more people, but to do it in a way that's not just, a letter here or there or a text here or there, but to really truly have conversations and look people in the face and say, "How are you?" and be present. It made me learn that, personally, my wife and I have some really wonderful friends out there. We spent my birthday, which is Christmas Day, we did 12 hours of Zoom calls. People signed up and we talked to about 25, 30 people on Christmas Day, my birthday. And in those conversations, we heard stories, we heard sadness, we heard celebration, but we connected in a way that was the best present, the best holiday I've ever had. And it's just a reminder that there's, you have these wonderful people. Take the time to say hello to them. Don't just send them a text, pick up the phone, or, maybe send them a longer message, handwrite something. I don't know. Just made me realize that in some cases we're all going so fast, and sometimes slowing down and truly embracing the present is the most satisfying thing out there.
I mute myself there. I think that's a really fantastic way to view what's happening right now, because when you can't be around your friends, especially if you're like me, if you're a hugger or if you just like being in person around somebody to see their smile and exactly right and just hang out for a couple of minutes, it is amazing how the littlest things like a phone call, to your point, not a text but a phone call or a video call or an email even, that feels almost unnatural in some cases because we're so used to moving quick. It's so easy in this last year, this pandemic, to tunnel vision into your own life. Like, how do I deal with my own life every single day? That it's really easy to like, my friends are still there. I'll get back to them later on, but they need it just as much as you need it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you called that out. I'm on a text thread with a few buddies of mine from Sonoma County now that we live in the East Bay, and we're texting periodically. But a couple of times I've just actually it's been really challenging for me because I just don't feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling somebody. I don't know why it feels so strange, but I'll call a buddy of mine on that thread and we'll end up talking for 25, 30 minutes as we're driving someplace or between chores or between meetings for work. And you're like, wow, walk away like kind of almost shaking, like, wow, okay, I need to go build something. Like this energy just appears all of a sudden because you get to spend a few minutes connecting with someone you have a relationship with. It feels amazing. We just don't do it enough. We don't.
We don't. Well, we're so used to it being kind of, you'd get that energy by walking down the street and interacting with people, and you forget that. So what we do is we isolate ourselves, we kind of withdraw, and then you realize you can still truly connect with people. I know you can't give them the hugs. I'll give you one, Jeff, when I see you.
Big virtual high fives.
Give them that virtual hug, that virtual, comfort to know that you're there to support. And I tell you, I probably feel more connected with some people now than I did before the pandemic. So if that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just, you know what, we can let the pandemic consume us. We can let it, not saying win, but we can let it just completely just push us into a hole. We are human, and the reaction was, it's going to be okay. But finding little ways to kind of gain energy as an extrovert, this is me telling you, all your introverts, I know your introverts were loving it in the beginning, and now you're like, wait a second, I need to speak to someone. Yes, I understand where you're going through. Give me a call. I'll give you my cell phone number.
It's just being a little intentional. Just that intention of like, because it doesn't just help you. It should help you because you feel good when you talk to somebody. It helps that other person in a way that you can't necessarily quantify. Just I made a point of calling you isn't just helpful because, oh, I get to talk to somebody. It's helpful because subconsciously or even consciously, it tells that person you want to have them in your life and you want them to be around and you want to connect with them. There is something intrinsically helpful about knowing that, because if, like me, I can be outgoing and, you know, be on camera and all this, but I tend to be very introverted just in general.
Sure.
And so when
Sure.
someone calls me, this happened recently. Someone calls me and says, "Hey, dude, I just wanted to say hi." My wife can tell you, like, I'm like, oh my god, they actually do want to be friends with me. Okay, because I often feel
Yeah.
like I'm the one always reaching out, and it's totally not true when I look back at it. But when someone just gives me a call, it's like, oh wow, okay, whoo, all right, I feel so much better. And you just, I don't think
Yeah.
everyone realizes that intentionality of just reaching out on your own, it can make a huge difference in someone else's life, even for
It
just a
means
few
it
minutes. It
definitely.
really does.
Totally
Well,
agree with you. Well, thanks
Robert,
for reaching out, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
absolutely, man. Listen, I really appreciate you being on the show. How would you like people to connect with you? Where would you like people to connect with you?
Wow. You can definitely connect with me. Go to LinkedIn, look for Robert Ostrow. I'll definitely friend you. If you want to, I don't even want to give him my Twitter account. It's an old account, so I'm not going to deal with that. But you can send a message to me at work at rob.ostrow, OSTROW, at Sezzle.com. If it's a business thing, I'd love to chat. But if it's just fun, it's robertwostrow at gmail.com.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much. I'll put, for everyone watching, I will put Robert's information that you can get a hold with him at down in the comments below, whatever that looks like. And again, Robert, thank you so much for being on. This is always great to talk to you and getting
Thank
just another unique perspective on how to deal with the situation we're in, but more importantly, not just deal with, but how to thrive in a situation like this. So thank you.
Appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you so much. Cheers. Take care.
Cheers, man. And thank you all again for being part of the show. I love having you all here. It's fantastic to bring these other perspectives to everybody, and really to hear that we're all not that much different from each other. And if we can just let ourselves see that a few more times, it really does help get us out of that fixed mindset into a growth mindset where we can actually be really successful and start to see those things that make us happy and realize that they are right in front of us, and just do more of those. If you like the content we're putting out, go ahead and hit the subscribe button below for more videos. These will be coming out every week. If you want to get notified, hit that little, I think it's over here, the little bell icon for notifications, and have a great afternoon. I'll see you soon. Bye.